Hey guys, welcome to another edition of Simply Fit. I'm your host, Sandy White, your number one health and wellness cheerleader, and we're encouraging 1 million individuals to live a simply fit life through health and nutrition so that they're able to overcome suicide and depression. And we want to thank WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network for allowing Simply Fit to be on their platform for a third season. Guys, check it out, WYTV7.org, and go check out all of the wonderful things that we're doing in the community, and not only the broadcast that we're doing, but check out all of the other broadcasters to see what they're doing on their platform, and then share with everyone. And while you're there, make a generous donation so we can continue to bless you guys with wonderful segments such as this. And today's segment, we're going to be talking about diastasis recti. And we have Dr. Betsy Green on here, and she is going to correct anything that I said out of order. But before we bring her on the platform, I just want to give you guys a little bit of background. She is a premier women's health expert, an entrepreneur, an inventor, and a business leader who specializes in female pelvic medicine and reconstructive surgery. And she can tell you guys a little bit about that. And she's been doing that for over 20 years. And she's the owner of Greenleaf and Wellness. She is the host of Some of Your Parts podcast, and that's dedicated to women's wellness and the notion that you are greater than the sum of your parts. And she's encouraging individuals to find health and wellness through self-discovery and education. Welcome to the show, Dr. Betsy. How are you today? And thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me on here today. I'm so excited to be speaking with you.
Thank you. Now, I know people say diastasis recti in a whole bunch of different ways. You're the doctor. How do we pronounce it?
You got it right. It's diastasis recti, but it's funny because I have a lot of patients that call it the disastrous recti because they can't say the diastasis recti. So...
But let me because a lot of folks, this is a crazy part. A lot of people, a lot of women have it. Now I don't know if men get it. If they explain that.
I did. I saw a man the other day who has it. So basically what it is we have these muscles, our rectus abdominal muscles. That's like the muscles that give us our six pack. I've never had a six pack in my life, but if I was to have a six pack, that would be those muscles. And so then there's fascia in between those muscles that kind of so fascia is like that connective tissue that kind of keeps everything in place. It keeps all our muscles where they're supposed to be, our organs where it's supposed to be. And so with the diastasis recti is you have that right between those two big muscle bellies, and it's supposed to keep everything together. But why women tend to get this more than men is because of the fact that women, when they get pregnant and as the belly is expanding, those muscle heads are kind of coming apart. So now you get this space in between those muscles. But I've seen it, not just with pregnancy, but if somebody's lifting heavy objects and they're just bearing down, you can get that separation of those muscles. And or if there's somebody who coughs a lot, maybe they have bronchitis, you can get a separation of those muscles. So I've seen it both in men and women, but much more common in women. And usually the timing of when it shows up is after a pregnancy. And so, yeah.
So how is it that a person may not know that they have it? What are the signs? I want to say some stuff, but I want to see if I'm right.
All right. So, usually when somebody knows that they have it is, you may be laying down and then you go to sit up, or maybe you're purposely exercising and go to sit up and you get this big bulging in your midline of your stomach. Because what happens is the muscles have separated, and now any pressure in the abdomen causes a bulging of those intestinal contents, kind of like through that fascia, that space between the muscles. So that's usually how people know that they have it. Sometimes it's just more of a cosmetic thing. People are like, oh, this looks kind of weird. Some people can get some like achiness in that area, but for the most part, there's not a lot of symptoms other than there's a lot of weakness to the core. And, as we know, our core kind of takes over every aspect of our body. We really need a strong core to be generally healthy. And so if this area is weak, it can affect some stability and some of that strength and that core strength. So
now you said men get it as well as females. Women tend to get it more often due to pregnancy. Men and women can get it if they're lifting heavy objects. So to prevent it, watch what how you're lifting, make sure you're lifting properly. There's no way to avoid it when you're pregnant. But let me ask you a two-parter. Okay, so you found out that you have diastasis recti, and you're like, okay, I want to fix it. So I don't want to say any professional names because I don't want to get in trouble, but the one health professional said that she corrected it by doing vacuums. And that's when you make sure she said she does it first thing in the morning. She has 4 kids and she corrected it. I think she said she started out with I think she said 3 centimeters, and now she's down to 1.5 or something like that. And she gets up in the morning, she makes sure she doesn't eat, and she just basically sucks in her stomach. And she does this about 20 times a day, but she try to hold it as long as possible. So can you correct this over the long term with exercises, or do you have to have surgery? Or if surgery, I think you said a lot of times is cosmetic. Is surgery just, cosmetically, if you just want to get back to, the 6-pack?
Yeah, so those are some great questions. With anything, there's a whole range of things that you can do for conditions. And I always say surgery is like the last case scenario. So because there's all risks, even the most perfect surgery has risks. So yes, you can decrease the appearance of it. Now, are you going to really fix it? Yeah, surgery is probably the only thing that's going to officially fix it, but you can decrease the appearance through any kind of core exercises, but like planks would be great. That vacuum thing that you said about sucking it in, I haven't specifically seen anything like that. But it's tough because if you think about doing your sit-ups, potentially sit-ups and it can aggravate it, but more things like where you're doing like planks or maybe even just kind of like static tightening up that area can do that through exercise. Physical therapy, working with a physical therapist can also help greatly with that. And then, there's not a lot. It's not like we can take a medicine to fix it. It's not like there's a lot of other options other than surgery. But I think the other thing is focusing on, what causes it in the first place. And if you have it, you don't want it necessarily to get worse because it is a type of hernia. And, if you've had this, you may be, a person who's had one type of hernia is prone to getting hernias elsewhere. And some of the risk factors are genetics. Like some people are just prone to hernias. Like I'm one of those people, unfortunately, right? I've had a couple hernia surgeries already on my own. But the other thing is nutrition. And that's like a big, factor in just general wellness and health. Is our tissue does so much better when we're healthy. So if we are getting good nutrition, we have good gut health, then our tissue is more likely to heal or be stronger and less likely to have that problem in the first place. The other thing is smoking is actually a big risk factor for any of these kind of conditions because they have found that smoking can actually affect the strength, that tensile strength of the tissue and our collagen. And so people that are smokers are at much higher risk of developing conditions like this. So
you have thrown out a lot of questions that I'm going to ask. So I've never heard of the physical therapy helping with diastasis recti. Can you explain how how a therapist would help with that process? And then I'll ask you the other two questions.
Yeah, sometimes it's more of just, having somebody instructing you on the right exercises, because sometimes, even when we think we're doing things right, a lot of times we're not. Like, it just top of mind comes like our Kegel exercises, which is unrelated to this, but strengthening the pelvic floor. Majority of us don't do it properly. So working with a physical therapist, and in that case, a pelvic physical therapist, if you're doing your Kegels, they can actually show you the right exercises to be doing to try to strengthen the area, and like a regular physical therapist to actually strengthen that area. Now, the other thing is, so if the diastasis recti is affecting your core stability, and it's not just a matter of doing exercises, they may be able to help work with other areas of the body to stabilize and build those muscles, so that they can take over for that weakened area in the abdomen. There's some other things that physical therapists can do with certain ways of taping things. They have this stuff called kinesio tape, and they use it. Sometimes you've seen like maybe you've seen like Olympic athletes with this kinesio tape. Sometimes it's like black and they'll have it, or I've seen it on football players. They have it on their arms or their elbows. But there's ways of taping the body to kind of reinforce the area and kind of help with any of the symptoms. So, and I was thinking too, when it comes to like symptoms wise, if it is bothering you, wearing devices such as like elastic support bands that they have, or like support abdominal binders, can sometimes help with some of the symptoms that may be associated with this.
Okay, we're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back.
80% of women will develop a pelvic health condition at some point in their lives. There is relief. There is hope. The Pelvic Floor Store, your resource for personal health.
Mr. Happy Living here. I love good things made by good people. That's why I love Dry Farm Wines. I first met the man known as the healthiest wino on earth back in 2016. He claimed Dry Farm Wines don't cause headaches or hangovers, and that he started his company because 99% of wine consumed in the US is highly processed and loaded with nasties. Like most processed food, it's toxic. That very night, I made a big health decision. Toxic wines out, natural wines in. It's been nearly 5 years since I made the switch, and I feel great. Go to happyliving.com, select Partners in Happy, and get your first bottle of natural wine for 1 penny. And I'll donate 8% of every order placed for the entire month of March to WYTV7. So share the gift of natural wine with a friend. It'll make you both happy.
Hey guys, if you're just joining us, I'm Sandy White, your host of Simply Fit, your #1 health and wellness cheerleader. And we just had our commercial break by Dry Farms Wine, and I hope you enjoyed that. And we've been talking the first half of the segment with Dr. Betsy Greenleaf, and we've been talking about diastasis recti. So I want to jump back into it. One of the things she said was making sure that you protect your core area. You can work with a physical therapist. You can make sure that you have good gut health. And then she also mentioned the planks. Planks are good for you. So I'll give you guys the link for the plank challenge for any of you all that are having challenges with diastasis recti. But also remember, she did say that this is a form of hernia, So I want to jump into that real quick. And then I have some other questions, because if this is a form of hernia, how do they know if they need to not try to take care of this on their own, if they do need to go and get professional help? Because I don't want anybody to get hurt.
Sure. I think always better safe than sorry. And, it's really easy to show a health practitioner and say, what do you think? But the reason why I say you should, have it checked out is I've seen cases where not only do they have the diastasis recti, but they could also have like an umbilical hernia with it. And so more so with the diastasis recti is more of a separation of the muscles and the bulging of the tissue, where when we think of true hernias, like an umbilical hernia, where you get that bulging of the belly button, that's an actual hole in the fascia that is surrounding your abdomen. So basically that tissue that's kind of wrapping your abdomen and keeping all your intestines and everything in place, you tend to get a hole in there. And so like, say if this is your fascia and there's a hole and you get a piece of bowel that's coming through and poking through and gets stuck, now that can become a surgical emergency. So not that the diastasis recti is necessarily that type of hernia. It's because it's more of just a separation versus an actual hole in the fascia. But a lot of times you'll see them going hand in hand. People will have these diastasis and an umbilical hernia, and the umbilical hernia is more of a surgical emergency if a piece of bowel gets stuck. So that's where. So I always tell people, if you'd ever develop any abdominal pain with any of this, don't even mess around with it. Just go straight to the emergency room to have it checked out.
So let me ask you this. A lot of times when you have women, when they have their first child, they do tell you to wrap yourself. They have the prenatal straps that you can put around you. And you mentioned the taping and things like that. So if it's just a separation and they haven't had the second part where you're saying it's the bulging in the belly button area, they can, anybody that's experiencing diastasis recti, they can actually do that now and start. Okay, cool. So I want to move on because you said good gut health, and you have the Greenleaf Health and Wellness. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So one of the things is Hippocrates back in like 400 BC, or actually, I think it was BC. I always get that mixed up. He said that let food be thy medicine. And really, we've gotten away from that. And really, it is definitely the truth when it comes to any health condition, is not just who you are, what you eat, but things that we eat can affect our intestines, and our intestines have so much effect on the rest of our body. Like I was thinking when you were talking earlier and doing your introduction about being healthy and decreasing the risk of suicide and depression and anxiety, no one really thinks about it, but our gut health has so much to do with that, because 90% of our serotonin, which is the hormone that makes us feel happy and not depressed and not anxious, is made in our intestines. So if we're eating the traditional American diet, fast food, a lot of bread, then you're probably don't have a good health and gut health, and that's affecting the rest of your body. And it also sets you up for other disease states. This increases your risk of diabetes, of heart disease, of autoimmune diseases. So the best thing is getting your gut health in alignment. And what that looks like for a lot of people is a good number of us are sensitive to gluten, which is the protein that's found in wheat products. So cutting gluten out of the diet is probably one of the best things you can do. Cutting down or getting rid of simple sugars, that added like table sugar, corn syrup, any of those added sugars. And then also dairy. Dairy can be very inflammatory for many people. So, and we have some very interesting tests that we send people for that. It's been pretty interesting that we can actually now test for things like leaky gut. And if you have something called dysbiosis, and dysbiosis is when the healthy bacteria in the intestines is thrown off. And so there is some stool testing that we can, not the most fun test to actually have performed. You collect some stool and you send it off to a laboratory and they look at all these factors. But it really gives a lot of answers. And I did it on myself, and I was really shocked to see what with my results. And so I'm myself working on my gut health right now.
This question I'm going to ask, it may not be related. I'm just going to throw it out there. So you said there are some tests that folks can do for the leaky gut. Now, is that through you? And is that something that a kit that they get from you? And is that totally different from having your blood markers tested?
Yeah, it's definitely different. There is specifically the one that's looking for a leaky gut is something called a zonulin level. And a zonulin level is this inflammatory level that's found in the stool and is indicative of a leaky gut. There's a couple different companies that do this kind of testing. I believe most of the stool testing has to be done through a physician. There's a company called Diagnostic Solutions that does the GI map. That's the one I tend to prefer because that one's more often covered by insurance. There's another company called Vibrant America that does it, but there's a couple other companies that do this kind of testing. But I know specifically Vibrant America has their wellness panels that anybody can just order online. And that looks at, you can get testing to look at food sensitivities, because that's another area of gut health that, you might be eating foods that you're not necessarily allergic to, but maybe you have a sensitivity to, and that's causing inflammation in your body, decreasing your ability to heal, affecting your immune system. So that's actually a test that patients can order directly themselves through those websites, or you can do it in conjunction with a health practititioner.
So those are all awesome. And guys, we'll make sure we have all of that information on the, back end once we're done with the interview with Dr. Greenleaf. But is there any additional suggestions that you want to point out to folks? Because one of the main things that I continue to hear you say with diastasis recti is if you just have good gut health, overall health in a nutshell, it will assist in making it either smaller or correcting it. But are there some additional steps or strategies that you would like to share with folks, and then tell them how they can reach you, what you got going on online, offline, whatever?
Yeah. So, I think just in general, and I do tend to get focused on gut health a lot because how it just has this far reaching effect on all these other areas. But I kind of lost a little bit of that, but, when it comes to the diastasis recti, what we did not mention before with proper lifting, we mentioned it briefly, but what I like to give people is the visualization. If you've ever seen big weightlifters lifting heavy weights online, they're blowing out when they're lifting, they're going, and the reason because is you're decreasing your abdominal pressure when you blow out. That's why they always tell you if you lift something heavy, don't hold your breath, because that pressure is going to go someplace. And for some people, that may be making that diastasis recti worse or creating it. It could be causing a hernia. For women, it can cause something called prolapse, where now we can have the bladder or pelvic organs dropping out from below, which is also another type of hernia. So it's very important that when you're lifting, not only are you kind of bending at the knees, but that you're blowing out as you're lifting. We're just finishing up, winter months and people shoveling snow. If you live in an area of the country that has snow, same thing when you shovel, make sure that you're blowing out. And the other thing is connecting with gut health is a lot of people suffer from constipation, and constipation is twofold. It's coming from the fact that we have poor gut health, and it also is coming from the fact that 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated. So you don't want to be constipated, because the bowels should actually function on their own and push the stool out, that you don't have to be bearing down so you feel like your eyeballs are popping out, because that's what's going to happen. Something's going to pop out. You may make that diastasis recti worse. You may make a hernia worse. You could actually, joking around, I say about your eyeballs popping out, but you can break blood vessels in your eyes from straining so much from constipation. So these are all ways to kind of prevent it from happening in the first place, but also even preventing it from getting worse if you already have a condition like this.
So real quick, you mentioned to ensure that you're not totally dehydrated. There are a couple ways, but I know that you probably have a lot more other than your mouth feeling like cotton. You think you're hungry, but you're really not. You can drink some water, but is it something else that they can do? Like Pediasure, Pedialyte, I think that's what it is. That when the kids have diarrhea and they're dehydrated, that's what they give them. Because a lot of adults really don't know when they're dehydrated. I mean, you could get angry and frustrated and things like that, and people don't realize that's related to being dehydrated. But like real quick, because we're down to the last 10 minutes, and I really want people to know about that, but how to reach you.
So really quick way to tell if you're dehydrated: if your urine is colored, if it's yellow, then you need to be drinking more. So I always say, first thing in the morning, you're going to have like yellow urine, but as the day goes on, your urine should be clear like water. And that's a perfect sign that you're drinking enough fluids, because everyone gets into like, oh, do I need to drink 8 cups, 64 ounces, just if you drink till it's clear, then you're good. So yeah. And where people can reach me, I've got a number of things going on. So I have a show here on WYTV7 called Body, Mind, Spirit on Wednesday nights. You can check that out. My website is greenleafbewell.com. That's for our practice. We also have Dr Betsy Greenleaf.com's website. I have Some of Your Parts podcast. I have a pelvic health store called the pelvicfloorstore.com, where we have pelvic health products. And we're in the process of putting some educational lectures together that are going to be at greenleafknowledge.com. And so that's coming out in the future. So got a bunch of projects going on. I'm writing a book there's not enough hours in the day.
So, what's the name of your book? And when is it coming out?
Well, it'll come out. I'm hoping it'll come out this year. It's funny because I have so many other things that are very distracting, but it's called The Happy Vagina Diet. And it's looking at how the foods that we eat, gut health, and how it affects our pelvic health. So
awesome.
Yeah.
We have been so delighted to have you on the show today, Dr. Betsy. I appreciate that. Guys, she gave you guys a lot of information. Again, we'll make sure it's at the end of the segment so you can reach out to Dr. Betsy. And I just want to remind you guys that I'm Sandy White, the host of Simply Fit, and our podcast is on Wednesdays night, every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're on WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network platform. So guys, go check us out on the main site, WYTV7.org, and check out all of the wonderful things that we're doing in the community. And again, while you're there, click the donate button so you can continue to see myself, Dr. Greenleaf, and all of the other podcasters and broadcasters that are on this network. She's got a lot going on, and she would love to have you as an honor on listening and possibly sharing the information with someone else that may be in a situation that you're a little uncomfortable explaining pelvic or any lady parts, then how they can fix them and get better health. Just send them right on over to Dr. Greenleaf's podcast, and she'll be glad to just talk you through whatever you need. All right, guys. Well, thank you for coming on tonight. And thank you, Dr. Betsy. We appreciate you. And we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you so much.